Hey guys. So, do you ever feel lonely? Like, even if you're surrounded by a ton of people, you still feel like none of them really get you and you're kind of in on an island all by yourself. Well, I'm I've been feeling a little bit like that lately. And I think it's perfectly normal. I think everybody feels like this every now and then. But it just got me thinking, like, we're kind of in an increasingly disconnected world. Of course, like back in ancient times, you used to be able to bond together with people in your village and you would just do stuff together just for survival. And now we live in such a technologically advanced world that we can live our lives completely separately, get everything delivered, have all the conveniences done for you, and we don't even have to even talk to each other anymore, right? You don't have to talk to anybody to get food delivered anymore. I think we need to have a little bit more emotional education. Like, how do we handle these sort of emotions and feelings when they come up? So, yeah, I guess I thought I'd make a video about it. So, in this video, I'm going to talk about the three different ways that I've reframed how I think about loneliness. And in the end, I'll talk about how that applies to my personal life. And before I get into it, I think it's pretty common knowledge now that um, loneliness is not the same thing as being alone. Like, you could still be surrounded by a ton of people, ton of friends, interact with hundreds of people a day and still feel lonely, right? And likewise, you could be all by yourself but still feel, at one with yourself. So I think it's sort of basic knowledge now. Like, if you've watched any videos about loneliness on the internet, you probably already know this. So, but beyond that, there are a few different tweaks that I've sort of used for myself to like shift my mindset to sort of weather that storm and navigate that out. And so that's why I wanted to make this video. So here we go. Number one, loneliness is a sign of the disconnectedness between you and yourself. So the people around you, they're usually not the problem nor the solution. At least they're not the whole story. Instead, they're usually just the side effects or a symptom of what's really going on, which is the degree of connectedness that you have with the truest, most fearless, most empowered version of yourself. And some people get there through other people, and some people just get there on their own. So you got to figure out which one is right for you. It's kind of the story of introverts and extroverts, although I don't really like to label people as strictly introverted or extroverted. But at the end of the day, it's really about how you best connects to yourself at the time. And you might change as well. Sometimes at one part of your life, you might connect to this part of you, and in another part of your life or another life stage, the theme might be connecting to another part of you. So there's a lot of you to explore. So I'll give you an example of like people who might connect to themselves in different ways. So let's say you're a musician, right? You might connect to yourself through playing in a band with other people. But some songwriters, they actually prefer to just be in a room by themselves, floating around with their own thoughts and undisturbed by the ideas or opinions of other people. So both of these cases have the common theme of you're really connecting to yourself. That's what's really going on here. You can think of loneliness as kind of like an invitation to level up, right? It's uncomfortable, but at the same time, it's kind of uncomfortable by design. It's really asking you to become more of yourself, and that's sort of how it works. So I think why this is important is like by reframing this feeling of loneliness as, oh, it's just the connection that I have with myself, it sort of gives you a little bit more control because sometimes you feel like, well, I'm lonely and the problem is other people and I have no control over other people, right? But when the problem is with your own self and the self discovery that you need to do, it's there's always something you can do about that, right? So, in a way, it's kind of an empowering way of thinking about it. And I used to think that the solution was always with other people. And that's not to say that whenever you feel lonely, don't go out and meet other people. Sometimes that is the solution. But I think what I've discovered is what's really happening behind the scenes is that you become more of yourself. And when you become more connected to yourself, you just attract all the right people into your life. Because again, like, you might be lonely and you might surround yourself with people, but they might not be the right people. Or, you know, they just might not be the right people because you are not the right version of yourself that you really need to be yet. So I think this is the most important reframing, and it's always where I go when I start to, have those feelings of loneliness. So I hope it helps you guys too. Number 2, loneliness is non-binary. And that is to say, loneliness isn't really either completely on or completely off. There's a lot of gray in between. I actually like to think of loneliness as like kind of like your physical energy throughout the day. We don't feel like we're either physically have in high energy or low energy, and that's it. Those are the only two states, right? Like, we sort of fluctuate between different levels throughout the day, and then there are different trends not only throughout the day but also throughout the weeks, throughout the months, throughout the years. So it's sort of this acknowledgement that the level can go up and down, and it's very, very normal. Some days you wake up and you have no energy, and you're just like a lump on a log the entire day. And some days you're really pumped up for whatever reason, something's got you really excited. And just sort of the acknowledgement that the levels go up and down sort of normalizes it a little bit, right? So, but if we ever realize that we're starting to get into a slump somehow of our energy, and okay, well, I don't really feel good for this hour, that's okay. Oh, I don't really feel good for this day. Okay, we all have bad days. But if you start to feel like, man, I haven't been feeling good physically for maybe the past few weeks, that's probably where we need to say, okay, that's probably not noise anymore. That's probably something that we really need to think about. There's probably some trend or some kind of effect that we haven't really discovered yet. And loneliness is kind of the same thing, right? We just acknowledge that there are these bumps in the road, there's this noise, and we try to not be too concerned about the noise. But once the trend gets big enough, then we say, okay, maybe there's something that I can do to increase my connectedness with myself, which is now how we think about loneliness. So I think the importance of knowing that it's not a binary thing, because that's kind of how we tend to think about disease, right? Like, we tend to think, oh, I have depression or I don't have depression. I have cancer or I don't have cancer. When in reality, health is anything but, right? There's usually signs and there's trends, and usually when something shows up, it's usually a sign that something has been building up for a while. So also, by noticing that it's just a non-binary, it's something that goes up and down very normally throughout the day, because it's probably going to happen multiple times in your life, it kind of adds a little bit of oh, well, this is very normal. I've been there, done that. I know exactly what to do. I have a playbook for how to manage my emotions around this. And it sort of allows us to talk about this like, oh, we can have education on how to manage our emotions. These are very common emotions that are going to come up all the time. It's not like you solve it once and you solve it forever. It comes up. It's a theme of life, and it comes up in different ways, in different parts of your life as well, right? Like, the way that loneliness hit me when I was in middle school versus when I was in college versus afterwards is it's just a completely different idea. It's a completely different game to play, and yet at the same time it's very similar, and I know that I can use some of the same tools and some of the same learnings that I've had before. But each time it happens, it's sort of a different type of challenge. It's inviting me to become a different part of myself, explore a different part of myself, and that's how I think about it now. Number 3, loneliness can propel you towards connection. So this is probably a really big topic that deserves its own video, but if you understand the ideas of like yin and yang, right, you know that you can't have good without evil. You can't have light without dark. And in the case of loneliness, loneliness is just a sign that there's connection on the other side of it. And you just need to find it, right? So, in a way, loneliness is kind of leading the way to that connection that you otherwise maybe wouldn't have had if the loneliness didn't come into your life. So you can actually use it for the purpose that it is serving in your life, and just assume that it's there for a good purpose. Assume that it's there for your own good, and that it's there to help you. It's there to point you in the right direction, and just sort of have that perspective with it. So, I used to look at loneliness like, oh man, this is really depressing, this is really sad. And I think that's how most people think about it, because that's just how it gets experienced, right? But every time this has happened in my life, it's always led me to become something greater, right? It's made me get out of my comfort zone a little bit, either make different friends or improve myself in a way where I would be in a position to make better friends and be in a more connected state. So I actually think it's really important to reframe your state of mind in this particular way, because sometimes we get stuck in it, right? Sometimes with loneliness, it comes depression and all these other things, and sometimes that can spiral, right? So again, taking that point that it is very normal, it just goes up and down, it fluctuates, and also that it's just a sign of the disconnection between you and yourself. You sort of have clues, and you sort of you know that there's a light at the other end of the tunnel. You know the process for getting through it. You know that there's some self-discovery to be had, and then you start looking for it. And when you start looking for it and you expect there to be the light at the end of the tunnel, that's when the next time it happens, you can get through it a lot faster, right? And this is true for almost any difficulty in life, but I think it's really good to put loneliness in the same category as that, because it's just such a common universal theme that everybody experiences multiple times in their life. And it's just good to know that we have these tools to be able to work through it, and that it's going to lead to something greater. So there you guys have it. Those are the 3 ways that I've reframed how I think about loneliness. Number 1, that it's really a sign of disconnection between you and the truest version of yourself. Number 2, that it's non-binary and it goes up and down all the time. It's very normal, so thus it's nothing to really be scared of. And number 3, it's actually a sign that is propelling you towards growth and more connection if you learn how to use it in the right way. This topic is more important than ever nowadays, and I hope it helps you guys as much as it's helped me. If you know somebody that needs to hear this, please send the video their way. And thank you so much for all the support that you guys have been giving me. I know I'm at the very beginning of my creator journey, but I'm so glad that you guys are here with me and that you guys find value in my stuff. Well, I'm going to post a little bit more about, these topics, and if there's anything that you guys want to hear about, just drop me a comment and let me know. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. How am I applying this to my personal life to deal with my own loneliness? Well, I'm doing this channel, right? I've only just started. I know I'm a new creator, and there's a lot of learnings that come with that. But I feel like it's the best way for me to connect with me. I feel like I have stories to tell, and hopefully I'll get better at it as I go along. And by the way, if you guys have made it this far, I thought I would just give a mention. I've almost tripled the amount of subscribers that I had since the last video I posted. I think I'm at 46 now, so I'm super psyched about that. Honestly, I didn't expect the YouTube algorithm to give me any views until I had like 100 videos or something like that. So it's really great to see that you guys are finding value in the videos that I'm posting, and I've got a lot more planned. I'm really studying my butt off trying to figure out how to really make better quality videos and just even presentation skills and stuff like that. So thanks for being part of my journey, and I'll see you guys in the next one.